Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So next heading is education. Now we are talking about the period, the life, how they lived in those towns and cities as they were growing up. So in that we now come to the heading of education. Now the state of education was quite satisfactory. In the Gurukul system, the pupils lived in the household of their guru. That means the teacher, the guru who was there, they used to sit, they used to stay with their gurus only. It was kind of a hostel type of an atmosphere where the students who used to study, they used to stay at guru's house only, okay, with him. As such, there was a close relationship between the teacher and the taught. Besides, there were schools for teaching crafts like weaving, dyeing, carpentry, etc. Takshila, Kashi, and Ujjain became great centers of education. Simple living and high thinking were the chief mottos of education. So before we move on, we should underline the heading, the, under the three main centers of learning, Takshila, Kashi, and Ujjain. Now here the teaching used to take place. The students used to stay with schools till they got knowledge. Next, please switch off your mic. Next is language and literature. Besides the Buddhist literature, some portions of Arjun Agarwal, will you mind closing your mic immediately? And next time, if you open, if anybody else will open, I will be counting it as Arjun opening the mic. I will take actions. Okay. So next heading is language and literature. Besides the Buddhist and Jain literature, some of the portions of the epics were also written in this age. Panini wrote his famous Sanskrit grammar, Ashtadhyaya. So now Panini was the writer of Ashtadhyaya. Please underline the work. And they are telling you that great epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata were written during these times only. The contact between the Aryans and the natives led to the rise of vernaculars called Prakrits. Please underline the vernacular, that means the local language, which is called, it was Prakrit. One of such Prakrits was Pali. Now, another vernacular language was, common language spoken by the people were Pali. So Pali and Prakrit were basically the two common languages which were spoken at that time. The Buddhists and Jains wrote their religious books in Prakrit. So Buddhist and Jain texts were written in Prakrit, and Pali was still one of the other common languages. Clear till here? We come on to the next heading. Sorry, there's still more. Then next is position of women in the society. The position of women declined in this society. They could not hold property. The practice of sati, that means self-immolation of women on the funeral pyre of her husband, was known. Child marriage and polygamy became more common. Widows were not allowed to remarry. In the northwest of India, there was a market where girls were sold. So the condition of women was still very poor in that time also. They were not given the status. There was the society, in the society, the position had declined. Then there was an evil system called sati. Now, sati means when a husband dies on the same burning fire, the widow was burnt along with the husband, which was called sati. Okay, so this practice had begun. Apart from that, there was child marriage, which had started, polygamy, that means one man marrying 2, 3 women. Okay, so all this practice was showing that the position of women was declining day by day. Clear till here? Then 4 ashramas. The life of the members of upper caste was divided into 4 stages or ashramas. These 4 stages were Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. Now, please know these terms. Earlier in those times, the life of the people was divided into 4 stages. In the beginning, when the person was not married, it was called the brahmacharya. Okay? When the person got married, it was called grihastha ashram. Okay, brahmacharya ashram, then grihastha ashram. That means now he had to live a life of a family. Then after the children grew up, it was the vanaprastha. That means aap jangalon mein chale jaiye for meditation. Okay, vanaprastha. And then last was sannyasa. When you become a sannyasi, leaving out every worldly pleasures when you are still older. Okay? So these were the 4 stages of life according to their age. They used to transform from one ashrama to another. Yeah? Then next, brahmacharya. Up to the age of 25, during this period, a boy lived with his guru and got education under strict discipline. Then grihastha, from 25 to 50 years, a man was to marry and become a householder. Vanaprastha, from 50 to 75, he was to retire from worldly life and devote himself to meditation. Then sannyasa, after the age of 75, he was to live a life of an ascetic. Ascetic is the sannyasi. Wander through the villages and live on alms. ठीक है, लोगों की भीख पर या रहम पर जिंदा रहना is called alms. Yeah. Now we come on to economic conditions. That means how well the money matters were there and how well it was responding to the economic conditions in those times. Agriculture, the first heading is agriculture. That means it was the major occupation at that time, so people were earning out of it only. Okay? And in those times, there was not a proper use of money also, it was barter system. You give this and in return take that. There was no money involved in the affairs, right? Please sit straight, last boy. Now, agriculture, most of the people lived in the villages. Agriculture was their main occupation. Rice formed the staple food of the people and was grown in plenty. Underline rice, it was the staple food. Staple means the basic food. Okay? Crops like cotton and sugarcane, vegetables and flowers were also cultivated. So underline cotton, underline sugarcane. These were the few other which were grown and cultivated. Much of the wealth of the country came from agriculture. Men of the special crafts such as carpenters, smiths, potters, etc. had villages of their own. Every village was particularly self-sufficient. People were happy and contented. So there were groups living together, doing the same profession and forming a village. Clear? Like if there were carpenters, they formed a separate group and they were living in those groups, making the village of that particular work there only. Okay, so they lived peacefully. They were all in all contented and harmoniously. The life was going on. Then the next heading under the economic condition is industries. That means no big huge industries like we see today were there, but basically the things which were grown in bulk would be exchanged with other things. So those were the industries which they are talking of. The number of occupations had further increased in this period. Industries like textiles, dyeing, printing, jewelry, stone and metalworks, garland making, etc. were in a flourishing condition. Guilds of workers came into existence. That means the workers had formed guilds, taking up these jobs like carpentry, smith, goldsmith, jewelry making, stone, metalwork, etc. So for these, they had made guilds. Now, guilds are the associations, like we have trade unions now. Have you heard of them? No. Like supposing you're working in an industry, the industrial workers, they form a group and they form a team which is called a trade union. If they have any problem, they go and refer to the boss in a whole group and tell their problem. If one person goes, nobody is going to listen till you make an andolan of it, right? So they go along with a group of people discussing their problems in an association. So in those times, they had merchants' guilds, okay, to look after into this. Guilds of workers came into existence. The next heading is cities. Now, the merchants mostly lived in cities. Why? Because they were trading and they needed big markets. So they lived in cities. Now Kaushambi near Allahabad. You please, children, underline these places because on the map work we will be doing all these things. Kaushambi near Allahabad, Ayodhya, Kashi, Mathura, Kapilavastu in Nepal, Mithila in North Bihar, Vaishali, Rajagriha, Champa, Shravasti, Ujjaini, and Takshashila were the great cities of this age. Clear? They have named a few places. Please make sure you are aware of them. Clear? Is anyone by chance carrying a physical map of India right now? You are having? Can you give me? I will mark these places and I will send a photograph to you all. And so that while you are doing the map work, all these things will turn easy for you. Children, is it okay if I do the map work for you and then I'll send a photograph and you all can do it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. It is okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
You have a... Okay. तुम में से कल कोई एक जन लेते आना मैप ऑफ इंडिया ले आओगे? Children, just now they don't have, but next time when they come, they will bring and then I'll do it. Okay? Is it okay with you all?
Okay,
ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so moving further. Trade. Now the next heading is trade. Now trade both inland and foreign was brisk. That means not only within the land they were trading, but also with the foreign countries they were trading. Okay, besides the land routes, the inland trade was carried through great rivers. So one means of transport was through roads. They were traveling and selling their things and trade and commerce was working. The other was through the rivers. Rivers were a main source of traveling now and transportation. Okay, and among these, especially the Indus and the Ganga River, they were the most famous and common for any transportation. We also hear of trade journeys to Babylon, Burma, and Siam. Please, these are the foreign countries where the trading took place, which is Siam is modern Thailand, and Ceylon, which is modern, Ceylon is modern Sri Lanka. The chief articles of trade were, now the things which were traded in those times was silk, muslin. Now muslin is the soft malmal ka kapda, which in Hindi we call. Then perfumes, ivory. Ivory, I told you, the tusk of an elephant is the jewelry made out of it is called ivory. Then jewelry, etc. Brooch, Sopara, and Tamralipti, that means modern Tamluk in West Bengal, were the chief seaports. So the important seaports, that means linking the sea and going abroad. These were the three main seaports, Brooch, Sopara, and Tamralipti. Okay. Partnership was known in trade and industry. So all had partnerships for various trades and industries taken into account. The next was currency. That means the money involved. Let's see. Use of coins as a medium of exchange became common. The standard unit of value was the, please underline, Karshopana. Karshopana. A copper coin of about 146 grains. Money was hoarded either in the house or buried in jars under the ground. So in those times also, since there were no banks, whatever extra money they had, they used to hide it. They used to hide it somewhere deep, either in the jars they used to keep it or underground somewhere. Okay. So this was the way in which their economic condition was during this time. Is this much clear to each one of you? Moving further, we now come on to religion. Thank you. Keep sending me, yeah, thank you. It gives me a lot of encouragement. Okay, so here we go. Religion. The Vedic religion of the Aryans came to be known as Brahmanism. Now, sit straight, please. Since there were more Hindus here, so their Vedic religion was known as Brahmanism. What was it? Brahmanism. Okay, it was so called because the Brahmins dominated the society and shaped the religion in their own way. In course of time, the Brahmanism became complicated. The number of rites and rituals increased. The Brahmins performed costly ceremonies and sacrifices. The hymns of the Vedas and the philosophy of the Upanishads could not be understood by the masses. Thus, in the 6th century BC, the common people began to look for a simple religion which could be free from the supremacy of the Brahmins. Now, what happened was the Hindu religion, that means all the Hindus were there. But since Brahmins were the ones who were intelligent and learned classes at that time, they were the priests and all. So what they did was they started twisting and turning the religion according to their choice. Since nobody could read the Sanskrit shlokas which were written in the Puranas and Vedas, so the common people could not understand. And Brahmins, they used to read, they used to understand. But when they asked, the common people asked, what did it say? They used to tell whatever they felt like. Did you get it? Correct? So now is the time when people started disconnecting with the religion. They thought that we could not understand anything what is written in these texts. So it was 6th century. It was time when the Jainism and Buddhism came into being. Why? Because the complication of the Brahmanism had gone very high because of the Brahmins, the priests who had taken up to misinterpreting the religion. Okay? They could not tell the people the correct things. And since everything was written in Sanskrit, it was not easily understood by the common people because the common people spoke in Pali and Prakrit. You remember? Is it? Okay. Now, Magadha. Let us quickly read. Magadha was one of the 16 Mahajanpadas, meaning great countries in Sanskrit. Underline Magadha, underline great countries or regions in ancient India. Magadha ultimately emerged as the most powerful one. The core of the kingdom was the area of Bihar on the south of the Ganga. Its first capital was Rajagriha. Underline the capital. First capital of Magad was Rajagriha. And then it was Patliputra. Magadha expanded to include most of Bihar and Bengal with the conquest of Lichavi and Anga respectively, followed by much of eastern Uttar Pradesh. The ancient kingdom of Magadha is mentioned in the Ramayana, Mahabharata and Purans. It is also heavily mentioned in Buddhist and Jain texts. The earliest references of the Magad people occurs in the Atharva Veda, where they are found listed along with the Angas, the Gandharis, and the. We will do it next time. I'll not do like this. That I don't feel like running and doing things. We'll do it the last two headings tomorrow or whenever we meet. Okay. Bye.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Bye, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Recording.